It is finally that wonderful, magical time of the year called Summer League. We're going to go over everything you need to know for the Orlando Magic Summer League roster as we get set for games to begin on Saturday. Let's get to it and close the week strong on Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is July 7th, 2023. My name is Philip Rossman-Reich. I'm the site expert and editor over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. Of course, follow me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, we're going to chat all things Summer League, the players to watch, the storylines we're following, and a whole lot more. We're going to get to all that coming up here in just a moment. First, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day, no matter when you listen to us, whether it's first thing in the morning, whether it's right when we upload. We truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. Remember, there's a great Locked On podcast covering every single team in the NBA. Just search for Locked On and the team you're looking for, the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. So, before we dive too deep into Summer League, let's just lay the ground rules out for how to discuss this thing and how to think about Summer League. I have my usual sayings. If you've listened to this podcast for several years now, you've probably heard me say this, but Summer League is not about finding out who can play. It's not about, we'll look at the box scores, we'll break things down, but it's not about figuring out who can play. At this point, to me, Summer League is about figuring out who can't play. Guys who can't hold their own in Summer League, who don't look like they belong, are going to get weeded out. And that's what Summer League is for. And obviously there's practices and teams don't just throw guys out there. I mean, they will throw everyone out on the roster out there. Everyone's going to get their shot. They're with this team for a reason. Their agents have placed them with these teams to get them in front of eyeballs. It's not just the NBA that's sitting there in Vegas watching these games. Everybody's going to get a chance. And yeah, by the time we get to game 5, unless the Magic are in the championship round, the Magic are probably going to be sitting their key guys. We'll probably see Anthony Black and Jett Howard for certainly 2, maybe 3 games. We'll probably see Caleb Houstan and Kevon Harris for 2, again, maybe 3 games. And then everything else is just going to be trying to position themselves for either a G League spot or a spot somewhere else in the league. The reality is what we see in Summer League isn't entirely real. Because Anthony Black and Caleb Houstan are going to be the stars of this team. They are not the stars of the team in the regular season. And so it's really, really important as we look at these games that, we watch them. Don't just box score read. That's not going to tell you very much, although box scores help a little bit. I'm watching Ochai Agbaji, and he's made some, in the Salt Lake City Summer League, he's made some good strides, but I'm not worried that he's shooting, below 50% or that he's taking a huge amount of shots. That's what he should be doing in Summer League. Don't box score watch. Watch the actual game, see what guys are trying, see what guys are trying to do, and then begin to ask the question, how is this going to translate to the regular season? How is this going to translate to the main roster? And that's ultimately the question that we have to ask with everything. Everything we see at Summer League ultimately goes back to this key question. How is this going to translate? So look, if Caleb Houstan, we'll talk about Caleb Houstan here in a minute, but if Caleb Houstan is taking 21 shots a game, I'm not going to really care about his dribble pull-ups unless he's, making a bunch of them. Then it'll be like, oh, okay, that might be something. If he shoots 35% from the floor, but they're all 3-pointers, or the majority of them are threes, and he's shooting 38, 39% from 3, that tells me something. So it's really important to have that context. Having said that, obviously the main thing that we all think about and we all talk about here as we get ready for Summer League is the rookies. This is our first chance to see the rookies in action. This is our first chance to get a good look at Anthony Black and Jett Howard. We saw them in college. That was in March. That was 4 months ago. And someone noted a question that I asked about to Anthony about not having played in a while. These guys haven't played organized basketball in 4 months. A lot, especially with young players, can happen in 4 months. And a lot of that was obviously spent preparing for the draft and getting ready for workouts. And that prep can change a little bit. But we're going to see these guys look very different. And so we're certainly really, really eager to just see the rookies out there. And look, and I'm very much a believer, like, here you just want to kind of throw them out there, see what they can do, give them some basic concepts, which, the Magic certainly have done. Give them some basic concepts and see how quickly they take to it, how quickly they understand these concepts, and how quickly they apply them. At this stage, results, if Anthony Black scores only 5 points per game, yeah, it'll be disappointing, but so did Franz Wagner. Results and the box score don't matter as much as, does this player understand what the coaching staff is asking of him? Does this player understand what we're going to ask of him in the regular season? Because again, all that matters is what's going to translate to the regular season. What's going to translate to when that full roster is together. So, again, do I expect Jett Howard to take some shots that I don't want him taking in the regular season? Absolutely. Do I expect him to get a bunch of threes and whether he can hit those 3-pointers is going to be an interesting thing to watch? Absolutely. Do I expect Anthony Black to shoot a lot more than he probably should? Honestly, like, Anthony Black just plays so smart. And when you watch him, I think he's kind of like Franz, where it's impossible for him to take bad shots because that's just not in his nature. But yeah, would I like to see Anthony Black be willing to take threes? Like, I don't care if he misses every three he takes in Summer League. I want him willing to take those threes. That's a big thing for me. Is just be confident enough to take the shot. I'm not going to worry so much about everything else going on. Be confident enough to take the shot. And I think that is part of what we will see, or part of what the Magic are going to try and develop here during summer league. I don't want everyone to read too much into Summer League. That's the message I want to send. Anthony Black and Jett Howard are going to have really good moments. Black will show off his defensive wares. He'll show off his passing, show off his smarts, hopefully shows off an ability to get to the foul line. I think that would be something that translates to the league, even though there are far more fouls at the Summer League level than at the NBA level. There are things I want to see. But at the end of the day, what we just want to see is that these guys belong, that these guys don't look overwhelmed by the increased physicality, by anything else. We got spoiled last year with Paolo. Paolo looked ready. Jalen Suggs looked ready in Summer League. He looked really, really good. He took a lot of shots, though. There was a lot of inefficiency. We waved some of it off, but he seemed ready. He seemed like he belonged, and certainly defensively, he has belonged in his first 2 seasons. Franz didn't score a lot, but if you watched him play, he looked okay. Like, again, he looked like he could hold his own, and nobody was really worried about how things would translate again. Nobody probably saw what Franz did his rookie year coming, but that's kind of the thing. Summer League is just really hard to gauge much of anything, again, unless you're watching and thinking about the context of the regular season. And so with the Magic's rookies preparing to debut, what really matters is, do they look ready? Do they look like they can hold their own? Are they holding court? Are they holding course in Summer League? Because if they do that, they'll be able to take another step from now until the beginning of training camp, and then we'll see what they're able to do in camp. Summer League, though, is not just for the rookies. It's actually a big moment for a couple players. We're going to talk about what Caleb Houstan and Kevon Harris need to do in Summer League this year. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, it's time for a quick word from our friends over at BetterHelp. This podcast sponsored by BetterHelp. Look, sometimes in life we're faced with tough choices, and the path forward isn't always clear. Whether you're dealing with decisions around career, relationships, or anything else, therapy helps you stay connected to what you really want while you navigate life so you can move forward with confidence and excitement. Trusting yourself to make decisions that align with your values is like anything. The more you practice it, the easier it gets. I've benefited from therapy. It's been something that I've used throughout my life to deal with important decisions, to deal with emotions, to just have a better sense of who I am, to get an outsider's perspective, someone who's in my corner, affirming me in some ways, but challenging me in others. Everyone needs a trusted person in their corner, and sometimes you can't always get that from family. You need someone who's unbiased or unbiasedly biased in your favor. That's what therapy really does. That's what really therapy really gives you. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Let therapy be your map with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA today. We want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day, whether you're part of my everyday crew or not. You should definitely check out our subtext community. Now is the time to sign up for subtext as we get ready for games to kick back off or just tip back off. I confuse my sports metaphors there. Now is the time to join the subtext community. I'm going to be sending out thoughts throughout the games, kind of doing a dry run of what the regular season is going to be like, so you get a good sense of what things are going to look like when the regular season begins. Check it out today. Join subtext.com/LockedOnNBA. That's join subtext.com/LockedOnNBA. Obviously, the biggest thing that I think everyone focuses on when it comes to Summer League is the debut of the rookies. Look, we're all watching Victor Wembanyama on Friday. Like, we're all watching him tonight. 9 o'clock, ESPN, his first time on an NBA court. It's going to be fun. And again, you expect some good, you expect some bad. They're rookies. They struggle. The rookies are bad. But everyone has their eyes on the rookies. For the first time in NBA uniform, the first time playing under NBA rules. It's a big moment, and it's a big thing. But Summer League is not just for the rookies, obviously. It's more actually for what we're going to talk about in these last two segments. The guys trying to make it in the league, trying to make a name for themselves, and the guys still trying to establish themselves in the league. Over the last few years, when we've had second-year players in Summer League, and look, we all wish that Jalen Suggs could have played Summer League last year. He had the injury, so he wasn't able to. Franz sat out because he didn't need it. He was in the World Cup. But for the most part, we tend to expect second-year players to look like veterans on the court, to look like they know what they're doing, to show that, to give us some sign or some signal that they've taken a step forward in their careers. Now, this doesn't always happen. It didn't happen with Cole Anthony. He really struggled. He kind of had free reign to shoot a lot, and that kind of gave everyone the sense like, okay, Cole Anthony isn't a future all-star here. And again, that's important to find out. We had RJ Hampton last year, a third-year player on the Summer League roster, and we could begin to sense some of the problems that he had because he was still a bit too wild. And while I think the Magic put the ball in his hands a lot and wanted him to kind of play a role that he wasn't going to play in the NBA, and there were a lot of things that he did do well during that Summer League, there were some trouble signs that started in Summer League that he wasn't able to completely dominate this level. I mean, the best example I can give right now is what Keegan Murray did in the California Classic. Keegan Murray dominated those games. He looked like he did not need to be there. I would be surprised if he plays very long in Vegas because he does not need this. He looks like the best player on the floor. And you expect players with this kind of experience to do that. Orlando doesn't have like big name prospects among their veteran Summer League players, but Caleb Houstan and Kevon Harris, I think, do have a lot that they need to show here in Summer League. And honestly, as excited as I am to see Anthony Black and Jett Howard, they're rookies. They're going to get their chances. They're just getting their feet wet. Like, I'm not expecting crazy big things. I'm expecting some good moments. I'm expecting some bad moments. But mostly I'm expecting, like, okay, this is the baseline we have to start with. Let's see what this looks like in camp. With Caleb Houstan and Kevon Harris, what you're seeing instead is a continuation of what they did in the regular season for the Orlando Magic. And that's part of what we're going to watch in Summer League, is whether these guys have continued their process, their progress. With Caleb Houstan, he had a really up and down season. A lot of it was he didn't get a lot of playing time. His playing time was sporadic. He never really got into a rhythm. And as a shooter, that's kind of a big deal. So I think that is something to watch. But when he did get playing time, he was able to shoot the ball decently well. He was able to score a little bit. He's a really good defender. And so first and foremost, I expect Caleb Houstan to be a really good defender. I expect this Magic Summer League team to play some decent defense. We're going to talk about some players to watch who you may not know. A lot of these guys are really good defenders. A lot of these guys are really, really good defenders. And so I do expect this Magic Summer League team to play some energetic defense. I don't know if it'll be good defense. I don't know if they'll stop teams from scoring. It's Summer League. There's a lot of fouling. There's a lot of turnovers. But I do expect this team to play energetic pressure defense. That we know that is something the Magic wholeheartedly believe in as an organization. And I don't think that's changing just because they're practice jerseys instead of real jerseys, or instead of like the nice Nike jerseys that they get. I don't want to say real jerseys, but you get what I'm saying. We know Caleb Houston's going to play good defense, but what we need to see from him is that 3-point shot. We know he can shoot the ball, but he's got to be more effective as a 3-point shooter if he wants to see the floor. And for Caleb Houstan, that runway to get onto the court is very narrow right now. It's very thin. We know about this huge backcourt glut that the Magic have, and while Houstan can play a little bit at the 3, now Joe Ingles is there. Now Anthony Black is going to compete for spots at the 3. Jett Howard's going to compete for minutes at the 3. Caleb Houstan has his work cut out for him. And look, you're going to need everyone on your roster at some point during the season. That's just the reality of it. That there's injuries. Guys go through lulls. Guys go through peaks. You go through these injuries. You go through this process. Houston's going to get some chance at some point. He's just got to be ready for it. And having a strong summer league would go a long way to getting him ready for it. Kevon Harris is the same way. Now, obviously, Kevon Harris is under a little bit different circumstances because he's on a 2-way contract, second year of a 2-way contract. We know he's going to be a great defender. His 3-point shot took huge strides last year. But what I think the Magic want to see from him this summer league is more composure on drives, more composure on passes, because Orlando would like to see him be a bit more of a playmaker. Or I'd like to see him be a bit more of a playmaker. We know the dude's going to work hard. We know he's going to work the offensive glass. We know he's going to defend. Like this, Kevon Harris is like the perfect 2-way player. He's going to get a shot somewhere when he's off this 2-way contract. But now it's just, what's that next level? What's that progression that we need to see from a player like him? What is that next step? And that, again, for these guys specifically, that's what Summer League is about. That's what matters for these players in Summer League, is what is that next step? And I think both of these guys are very capable of showing us that next step and taking that next step. We're going to go through the rest of the Summer League roster. I'll give you a couple other players to keep an eye on in Las Vegas, because the next big question for Summer League, who's going to get the Magic's last 2-way spots? They have 2 of them left. That's the only roster spots left. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. So obviously, when it comes to storylines for the Orlando Magic, the roster's set. Magic have 15 players on the roster, 15 contract players. And yeah, they'll add a couple players for training camp, send them down to the G League, some Exhibit 10 guys. The roster that we expect to have on opening night is set. The only roster spots left to fill on the Orlando Magic are their final 2-way spots. And it's, I don't want to limit ourselves to the Magic Summer League roster, because they can sign it from everywhere. Kevon Harris played for the Minnesota Timberwolves last year in Summer League. So it can come from anywhere. But there are a couple players on this team that could get a very good look for a two-way spot. Now, I think what's really important to start with is when you look back at the Magic and the kind of guys that they've added on two-way contracts, they tend to be veteran players. They tend to be, Troy Copane, who was, on the Magic's G League team for a few years before he got that two-way contract. It tends to be Emile Jefferson. It tends to be Admiral Schofield. It tends to be Kevon Harris. Guys who have been in the G League, not necessarily to build up the Osceola Magic or the G League team, but because these are players that they can use on the main roster. They're going to work hard at the G League level when they're down there. They're going to work hard when they're at the NBA level and support the roster when they're needed. And certainly over the last few years, the Magic have needed it. So with all due respect to DJ Wilson, who I think is going to get a ton of playing time, and I think the Magic are going to give a really hard look for him. He's a fifth-year player. He's ineligible for a two-way contract. He's someone to keep an eye on, but I don't think he's obviously not going to get the two-way contract. So I just want to focus on two-way contract guys. So my parameters for a two-way contract right now, experienced guy, you're going to have a tough time finding that here, but we'll go through some of the more experienced, some more kind of like G League experienced players here. On top of that too, I do think the Magic need to focus in and bring in a power forward and a center on these final two-way contracts. That's where the Magic are the thinnest on their roster. And so if you're looking for players who have a pathway to play and a pathway to contribute, or players where the Magic might actually need the two-way contract player to help them out, power forward and center are the two spots. So those are kind of my two parameters. So there's a couple players worth mentioning here on the Summer League roster. Now, again, Magic have love their positional size, love their positional length. You can see that throughout the roster. The center battle is going to be really interesting. Kai Soto, played in Japan last year, played in Australia, Japan last year, from the Philippines. He's working to become the first Filipino-born player to make the NBA. Kai Soto, I think, really does have a chance to get that two-way contract. I think he really does have a chance to make waves and to earn a spot somewhere in the NBA ecosystem. Again, remember, I know there's a lot of people who have subscribed to this podcast looking for information on Kai Soto. I would remind everyone who's listening, and this is me, being honest here. Just because Kai Soto's on the Orlando Magic, playing for the Magic Summer League team, does not mean he will get his opportunity with the Orlando Magic. He could play well and sign elsewhere. The Magic have no rights to him just because he's on their Summer League team. And it's important to remember that about all these players. I want to limit us to the Magic for this discussion, but it's important to remember this about everyone at Summer League. They are all, unless their rights are owned by someone else, they're all fair game for free agency or for two-way contracts or for whatever. Again, the Magic signed Kevon Harris last year off of Minnesota's Summer League roster. But Soto, I think, really does have a real shot at not making the roster, but making the two-way roster, making good on a two-way contract. He is not the biggest dude. Again, 7'3", he's big there, but only 230 pounds. He's not a traditional low post center. He is a stretch five. He can step out and hit threes. He's good on the perimeter, can pass it a little bit. His ability to defend and his ability to rebound are going to be what determines whether he actually gets a good shot. But that's something to show here in Summer League. That's something to show in this setting. And, he struggled a little bit. He struggled last year in Australia. And Australia can be a really physical league. So he's got a lot to prove. He's got to kind of put that season behind him and have a good showing and make people say, that's kind of interesting. I kind of like what I see. It may not happen in a two-way contract, to be perfectly honest. I want to be honest with all of you who are looking for Soto information. I want to be honest about that. He may not get a two-way contract, but I think he is a prime candidate to get a G League look, whether it's with Osceola, whether it's somewhere else in the G League ecosystem. I think that he could be a player that certainly the Magic look at and say, he's not ready yet, but let's give him a look at Osceola. maybe bring him on a two-way later in the year, midway through the season, bring back in Summer League next year. This could be a multi-year odyssey for him. The kid is talented, though. The little bit I've seen, he is talented. I don't think it's impossible for him to be in that picture. I also want to remind everyone who's listening, Summer League, everybody gets their chance. So we will see Soto play. He's going to start a game, maybe two. I don't know if he'll start Saturday, but by the end of Summer League, he's going to get his minutes. At some point, he's going to get his minutes. He may sit a game. That's again, everyone's going to get their shot. Everyone on this roster, and there are a lot of players on this roster, are going to get their shot at some point. If Soto is not the guy, though, I would take a look at Robert Baker. Robert Baker II, 6'11", 205, so again, a little bit small on the small side too. Harvard player. He's a little bit older now, 25 years old now. He's a really good defender, just a really good positional defender. And I think, again, that's something that this Magic team always values. They value that positional defense. They value that little bit of versatility that he can play up and down a couple positions. Baker is definitely a player I would have my eyes on as well. As far as forwards, there aren't a ton of great forwards. DJ Wilson's obviously one, but one that I think is worth mentioning and worth looking at, and I have to begrudgingly say this, Malcolm Hill from Illinois. This will be a second year pro, 6'6" power forward. Again, a little bit on the older side, born in 95, so that makes him 20. That'll make him 28 in October. So again, a little bit on the older side, but Malcolm Hill at Illinois, if I remember correctly, really good, always been a really good defender, really good switchy defender, good energy guy. I don't think he had the shooting necessarily at that stage, but obviously some time has passed. So I keep an eye on Malcolm Hill as well. There are a lot of guards to keep an eye on here too. Adias Toney, another defensive-minded guard from Arkansas last year, or another defensive-minded guard from Arkansas. Really good player there. Quindary Weatherspoon, 6'3" guard, has played a couple years in the NBA. I don't know if he's two-way eligible, but a veteran player. He's had a couple cups of tea in the NBA. I'd also keep Dexter Dennis in mind. Texas A&M guard, really good defender, just good size at 6'5", 210 pounds. Again, just kind of a big dude. Big dude can take a little bit of a beating. I really think, he's a guy that people got excited about. And then Wyoming guard Drake Jeffries. I believe he was on Lakeland last year, 6'5" guard. He was on our radars last year as a potential second-round pick. So this guy's talented enough. Really, really good shooter. I definitely have Drake Jeffries on my list for potential two-way guys. But again, not a lot of size on this Magic roster. There's only 3 players taller than 6'10" on the Magic Summer League roster. So again, Soto and Baker are going to get their chances to really show what they can do. DJ Wilson's going to be instrumental to this team, at least when the veterans are in there. I think he's going to help stabilize things. Wouldn't surprise me if he starts at center on Saturday. Wouldn't surprise me if the lineup for the Magic on Saturday is Anthony Black, Caleb Houstan, Jett Howard, DJ Wilson, and probably maybe Malcolm Hill. Maybe they throw in someone else there. But this is not a very big roster. Surprisingly, the Magic don't have a ton of size on their Summer League roster. Again, we're all guessing here. We don't know what's going on in practice. We're going to see who the Magic favor in this first game. These first 2 games are probably going to be the ones where you really get a sense of who the Magic actually like and want to look at. And then the rest will be seeing development, giving guys their opportunity to showcase what they can do. And again, by that 3rd game, you're kind of starting to check out of Summer League. But we'll cover all 5 games. Don't worry. We'll get to them all. But that's going to do it for me today. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. Remember, you can find me on Twitter at @PhilipRR_OMD. Subscribe to the podcast and Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all of them listed on the podcast to your podcast enabled listening device. For latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can also follow me on Twitter there at @OMagicDaily. We want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. If you're part of our everyday crew, tune back in Saturday when we recap the Saturday night, probably after the Orlando City game, so it might be late. When we recap, that won't be after the Orlando City game. I'm going to record it at 8. When we recap the Orlando Magic's Summer League debut against the Detroit Pistons, as well as maybe talk a little bit about the play-in tournament and the Magic's path on the play-in tournament. That might be a Monday episode of Locked On Magic. We'll find. We'll figure that part out later. But until then, for Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic, this has been Philip Rossman-Reich. We'll see you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.